Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Jaquan,
I'm Jasmine.
and welcome to the Film Spill.
So today, guys, we're going to be reviewing a series called When They See Us. This is a crime series, and here is the summary. In 1989, a jogger was assaulted and raped in New York Central Park, and 5 young people were subsequently charged with the crime. The quintet, labeled the Central Park Five, maintained its innocence and spent years fighting the convictions, hoping to be exonerated. This limited series spans a quarter of a century from when the teens are first questioned about the incident in the spring of 1989, going through their exoneration in 2002, and ultimately the settlement reached with the city of New York in 2014.
You already know when it comes to shows and movies like this, I don't really like them as much, and not because they're not great films. It's just like I don't like how black people are portrayed and the things that happen to us, where there's so much injustice and there's so many things that happen that continue to get swept under the rug. And this was definitely one of those films that was definitely hard to watch. Just seeing all the things that those boys had went through. So I definitely it's very hard for me to give these type of films or shows ratings, because like I said, it's not like I was entertained. It was more so like I was informed, but I was very upset. But of course, if we had to give it a rating, it's always going to be in the top. It's going to be a 5, because I feel like it's important to have this information out there. And let's get into my pros and my cons. So this series is going to be very different because I don't have that many pros. I have a lot of cons because there's a lot of stuff personally that was getting to me, but we're going to get into them. So my first pro was the actors. I feel like those boys did an amazing job, portraying the Central Park Five. I think it's cool when I do watch these type of series or movies when the actors do so great that when you see them, you see the roles that they play. Like, it's almost like they become the people that they're playing. I rarely see that in a lot of films, but this is definitely one of the ones that did it for me, where it's just like, man, they literally they were the actual people who were experiencing that stuff. My next pro is Ava. She did an amazing job, and with this series, I feel like it was so important because before even this series, I never even knew anything about the Central Park Five. So to have this come on Netflix, to have all this information being put out there, I feel like it was amazing because I just think it's important to have this type of information out there, specifically for people knowing that the things that we continue to do in this country still to this day, and the things that happen on that dark day, and basically to talk about the things that happen in the history of this country. A next pro is Linda Fairstein, so basically the prosecutor who prosecuted these boys and put them in jail. I was so elated and glad when I found out that she had got dropped by her publisher. So when that happened, and because of the outcry of her role conviction of those 5 teenagers, I was truly happy, because it's just like, it's one of those things where these people do these things, and they're so harmful to the community and to people's families, and they just go about their lives just doing other stuff, and she has the nerve to try to make money and stuff off that, and by selling these crime books and stuff. So yeah, I was glad that she got dropped. So the internet definitely did their job. So let's get into my cons. A lot of cons, because there was a lot of stuff I just don't like that happened. So the very first con was Linda saying that it was wrong. So after the film came out, I mean the series came out, and of course, like I said, it was a lot of outcry to get her removed from her publisher. She basically came out and said it was wrong for the boys to have gotten out of jail. She said that they weren't completely innocent, even though they were exonerated after Reyes, who was a serial rapist, right? She said, I don't think there's a question in the minds of anyone that was present during the interrogation process that these 5 men were participants, not only in the other attacks that night, but in the attack of the jogger. So even though the DNA basically said that exonerated the teenagers and said that they weren't, they weren't their attacker, this lady is still saying like, nah, they had something to do with it. Which is, again, is just like one of those things where it's just like they cannot just own up to their mistakes and their faults. She literally just still holding on to the situation, saying that she felt like they shouldn't have gotten out. But next con was just seeing how, once again, things that we know that happens in this country. Corey, just seeing how he was beaten up and made to confess. I just thought that was just crazy, because it's like he wasn't even on the list to be arrested. He was just there to support his friend Yusuf. So just to see that he went through all that stuff was crazy, and I'm gonna get into that towards the end. My next con, once again, like I stated earlier, these type of films are hard for me to watch because there's so much of this stuff that still goes on in this country when we talk about black men wrongly being accused and arrested for crimes they did not do. The next con was seeing that it was actual footage of Donald Trump saying how he hates the people who did this and how he will fight to bring back the death penalty. So this man literally was trying to push for the death penalty for these boys. And what's crazy to think is this person was our president. He even came out and admitted. So after this series came out, he came out and admitted that they got it wrong, right? The state got it wrong for letting those boys out of jail. He said you have people on both sides of this. They admitted their guilt, saying that the boys admitted their guilt. They're guilty because they said they were guilty, even though it was coerced. He said, look at Linda Fairstein. If you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should have never settled that case. So once again, you have people like this, like, who are, this man was our president, but once again, don't matter. They just do not care about us. And I just think it was just crazy. My next con was, so Patricia Melly, the woman who was raped in the park, when she was called to be a witness, she was limping. She was walking very slowly. She was having trouble with her speech. She basically said she had no recollection of the event in the park. So not having a support system, these boys go through this ordeal, have a hard time adjusting, and yet they still, convicted these kids, even though the person who was attacked basically told them, like, I don't even know what happened, and they still did it, right? Another con was not having a support system. So when these boys got home, right, and they were trying to adjust to the outside world, specifically talking about Raymond, he was having trouble finding a job, and he just did not feel welcome in his home. He ends up having a confrontation with his new stepmom, who even calls him a rapist. So he was dealing with a lot of them was just dealing with the coming home and not having support system, not being able to have a job. Raymond ended up selling drugs, and then, he had to go back to jail. So, it was so much on them, getting out, trying to adjust. There was kids when they were arrested. Now they're thrown back into society. It's very difficult. The last two cons I just feel like the worst person who had the worst situation was Corey. I feel like the things he went through was very hard for me to watch, from him being beaten to finding out his brother was being killed, and also having to move multiple times further and further away from his mom. To different prisons. The last episode was definitely the saddest, as we expected. This episode mainly focused on Corey's life in prison. Like I said, his story is definitely one of the most tragic ones, because not only was he wasn't guilty, he wasn't even on the list of suspects. So once again, like I said, it was just horrible and he was the only one that was, he was there longer. The last con, once again, like I stated earlier, just them not having no remorse, no nothing. They don't think that they did anything wrong. And it's not just Linda, right? So like I said, Trump said something. It was in an interview with Ava was talking about the prosecution. So she was on an interview with NPR, and she talked about how the city never apologized. They settled. No one on the side of the prosecution ever apologized. They stuck by the fact that even though the real man came out and said, I did it alone, even though all the physical evidence was from him, was matched to the victim, and it was a fact, it was him and only him, these people still refuse to acknowledge that they not made a mistake, they lied. So once again, it's just like all the facts can come out at the end of the day. They're still going to paint us out as these specific people, and they're not going to admit when they did anything wrong. So I feel like it's amazing that Ava was able to create this, or bring this story to life for people like myself to be able to get informed about what's happening, and also to be able to utilize my voice. So once again, amazing series. Definitely recommend you guys watching it.
So I give this series a 4 out of 5. Like you said, it's hard to give it a 5 and rate it because it wasn't any justice, but the storytelling itself was good. Ava did a great job. She's an amazing filmmaker. The actors, especially the young boys, did a really amazing job as well. It shows you how manipulative the system can be to minorities and poor people, and it was really sad, the fact that they were kids when it happened. There was so much misconduct that happened, and like he said, no one ever apologized for the trauma that was inflicted on them. It really pulls on your heartstrings, and it's hard to watch, especially as a Black person, and I have a Black son. So this could easily be a reality for me or my family, so it's very scary. It's very heartbreaking because so many people said, like, they literally can't even watch that twice, and there are some people who said they would never watch it, period, because just hearing the story itself is terrifying. These men will always have to carry this with them their whole lives, and all of those years that were taken from them will never be given back. No amount of money could fix what they have been through. The justice system is just really sad, and it's the fact that it's barely changed over all these years is even sadder. But all in all, When They See Us was so hard to watch, but it was necessary to see. I wasn't familiar with the Central Park 5 story before this came out, and it's just truly an important series to watch.
So just like always, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. You guys have a good one.